In this video, I'll show you how to extract environment variable value in a model driven app using JavaScript. Now, the use case is first of all, what is an environment variable and how do you create one? So let's go into the solution over here. Now, I'm in Airlines Go solution. I have already built a simple model driven app as you see over here. Now, here there is an option whereby you can click on new and then you can start creating your own set of objects, like you can create a column, you can create a relationship, etc., for a specific table. However, if you just go one level back, you go over here new, then you can create more set of things. Now, one of the component is an environment variable. Now, if I go new, more, and environment variable. Now, environment variables can have different values when reused. Uh, Enter information about this variable so that future user can understand its purpose. Now, what an environment variable is, like, it is a set of field which exhibits different set of behavior in different environment. So take for example, if you have a dev environment and you want to ship your solution to say UAT or test environment and then eventually ship that to a production environment. Now you can have a environment variable with some set of values in developer environment, UAT environment, and production environment, and these values you can change. You can manually change in the in that specific environment. Now, the use case would be like, say, if you have a developer environment, say URL, or UAT environment URL. Now, those URL will be different across all the environment. Now, all this value are dependent on a specific environment, and that's why you would like to use an environment variable. Now, in our example, I will just show you in a model driven app. If we just want to know which environment does this particular record belongs to, whether it's a dev, whether it's a UAT, whether it's a prod. Now, this is useful when you are sending out an email. So now when you send out an email on basis of any action, like say if someone changes a record within a table, like in this case, the airlines table, then you would like to send out an email. But if you have three different environment, you will never come to know the email is coming from which environment. Now you can have one identifier, which is like basically a environment variable, which will specify that this email is coming from say a dev environment or UAT or prod. Now, this will help you troubleshooting your application much better. Now, this is just one example, but then you can have multiple different example which are environment specific, and then you can utilize the piece of code to extract the environment variable value. Now, for this, we are going to just pick up, write one environment variable. Now, here I will say new environment variable, and I will call this as uh, server type. So this is the just environment variable. And if you see the name gcop underscore server type and description is server type. And I have an option to select decimal, JSON, text, yes, no, data source secret. But in this case, I will just use text for time being. And I can specify that, yes, this default value is dev and current value is, again, it's dev. And there are options when you do a deployment, whether you want to export the value. The current value will be removed from the exported solution file. If it is no, if it is yes, current value will remain in the exported solution file. So all these options you can pick, but for time being, we will just assume that this is a dev environment. I'm creating an environment variable, which is of type text. Now the environment variable which you have created, gcop underscore server type. Now we need to extract this value somewhere within the piece of code. Now, I can write a JavaScript attached to a form or to a view, and then I can extract that value. So, one example would be like if I go inside a record, I want to see which environment does this record belongs to, whether this is hosted in dev, UAT, and prod. Now, just to show you where what I meant by different environment, if I navigate to Power Platform Admin Center, I have three different environments. Now, currently, I am hosting the solution in the dev environment, but I can ship that solution into UAT and then into prod. But just by making, yeah, so as you see over here, I have three environment: dev, UAT, and prod. And currently the solution is hosted in dev environment. Now, The moment this code runs in dev, the output would be dev. The moment this code runs in UAT, the output would be UAT or prod or whatever. Now, if that is the case, how would you like to, what steps would you like to do so that you can extract the environment variable using a simple piece of code? Now, for that, what we need to do is we need to write a simple JS for that. So let me remove the old references. Now, in order to retrieve the environment variable, first thing what you would like to know is what is that environment variable name. So let me call this as let environment. So let me call this as evar environment variable and the name of the environment variable we just created. So I think we have created an environment variable of name gcop underscore something. Let's see what that value is. So if you want to see what you have created, so if I go to environment variable, I have something called as server type. So name is gcop underscore server type s and t capital. So gcop underscore server type. Now this is the environment variable. Now how do you retrieve this value? Let's use say let or where. Let me use let, and then or maybe let me use say where for time being. Okay, so let me use where evar, and here we will get the result. Okay, so the result is xrm dot web api, and we will use the logic of multiple retrieval. So xrm dot web api dot retrieve multiple records, and once we retrieve that multiple records, we need to specify the OData syntax, and also we need to specify which table we are going to extract that value from. So first thing here, we need to specify the table name from which we are going to extract the value. Then here we need to specify the OData syntax. Means the query, basically what are you going to extract from uh, that particular piece of code. And once that is done, we'll just say console.log, and this is the environment variable environment variable value, and we will write the more details over there. Okay, so let's pick up the first item. So if you pick the first item, you just say result dot entities of says first reference, so that is 0, and we will just display the value for it. And likewise, if you encounter an error, so if I put this entire thing in a try catch block, so that's always a best practice to put all your piece of code in the try catch block and catch the error. So I'll just catch the error, and here I can either open in a dialog box or just write in console.log error, and I can put some more details. Error, what was the reason for that error? I can just say it's like error dot message. Yeah, so that's the try catch block which we have put. Now we need to put the table name and we need to put the OData syntax. Now we'll come to that. Now first, environment variable, where it is stored. Environment variables are stored in a table called as environment variable definition and environment variable value. Now if you don't know how to extract it, I've already used that over here. So if you don't find that, you can just go ahead and you add existing table, and then you will see two different tables: environment variable definition and environment variable value. Now we just created one environment variable which is of the name, we named it as server type. So let's go into environment variable definition. So if you go to environment variable definition, you will see this internal table. This table is read only. So if I just scroll here, I can see gcop underscore server type. Now there are other components which you can show display name, description, and all those things, and then that should be shown over here. Now this is the variable which we have created, server type. That is a display name, that is a description. Now if you want to know the internal name, there is no way where you can edit column and get the internal name of that particular column, right? So I'll show you what to do and how to extract those internal name to put it in your piece of code. If you see in another table, environment variable value, which will store the actual value. Now this is gcop underscore server type, which we just created. Now here, uh, if I see environment variable definition, environment variable value, I can see this values. Now if I want to edit this column just to see the logical name of this, I may not be able to uh, extract that value because there's no edit. This is a read-only table. So the my goal is to first get the logical name so that I can exactly specify which column to retrieve the record from. Now we know we want this value gcop underscore server type, and what is the value? So so this is the value. So the whole goal is to get this value extracted. Now, in order to get this value extracted, I should exactly know the table name. Yes, I know the table name. So what is the table name? So go into properties, and here, this is that table name. So environment variable value. So let's copy this table name and put it over here in the start. So this is my environment variable value. Now we need to write uh, a code. Basically, I will just here we need to write a OData syntax code. Now OData starts with like passing the query string, so question mark dollar select equal to, and then specify what value do you want to see. Now I want to see the value. Okay. Now what is the logical name for this? Now in order to get all these values, what I have done in my model driven app, I have added these two table, environment variable definition and environment variable value. So if you see this airline table over here, I have added this environment variable definition and environment variable value. Now I've just kept it so that I just want to know the logical name for different field set, right? Now if you see this value, if I go inside say this record, and if I use the level up tool, I can see environment variable definition id and the value as the value name, right? And that's why I know I want to extract the value, and I'll go into the code and I'll say show me the value. But we need to pass some parameter like value of what. We need to expand into a table. So expand the table, environment variable definition id, because if you see the structure over here how it is structured, um, environment variable definition. So we need to extract this environment variable definition, which is gcop underscore server type. Now we need to extract, we need to iterate through this gcop underscore server type. So expand environment variable definition, go over here, environment variable definition, and within the definition I need to get the schema name. So if I go here, environment variable definition, here we need to extract the column which is of this type schema name, and this is the value which we want, right? So what we are essentially telling the code is that I want to extract the value, but then this is that name, so gcop underscore server type. Now we have already used a variable for that. Now the syntax for this is you just need to specify the table name which through which you want to extract. So the table name is environment, uh, rather the column name is environment variable definition id. And once you expand through the environment variable definition id, which is specifically this part, so we are just navigating from environment variable value column, this one, we are picking up this column. As you see this type as multiple types, so we are expanding this, and then from here, like let me just show you here, environment variable definition and environment variable definition value. So this is that value. So we are expanding this, and then we go over here and we will say I want to extract the schema name out of it. Now if you don't know the syntax, like I'll help you in writing the syntax. Environment variable definition ID ampersand dollar filter. So we will use a filtering of uh, environment variable definition ID. So the same thing, but the column name this time is schema name. So ampersand, so we are just passing dollar select equal to value ampersand, and don't forget this value dollar expand, because we are using another table now to expand. So dollar expand variable definition ID ampersand dollar filter equal to environment variable definition ID schema name, and then you specify equal to what, equal to gcop underscore server type. Now we can hard code this value, or we can directly say, we can just say single quotes and then close the double quotes plus specify the variable, so which is e var, and then we need to put a double quotes and then put a single quotes, close the bracket, double quotes, close the bracket, double quotes, and then close this entire. Yeah, so I think we already have that over here, so let me, yeah, take use of this. Yep. So this is the syntax: environment variable value, dollar select equal to value, ampersand dollar expand equal to environment variable definition ID, and then this, and then, yeah, I know the syntax is a bit complex, but we'll try to see whether we have written it correctly or not. Okay. So let's copy this piece of code and then go into model driven app, and let me go into the developer tools. So let me navigate to either a table or maybe a specific record, and then I'm gonna paste the code. Once I paste the code over here, just press enter, and then I'm able to successfully extract environment variable value as dev. Now what we can do is just to verify whether it is coming correctly or not. Let me go into the environment variable again and then take the value and call this as developer environment. I'll click on save. Now again go back here and let me paste the value again. Now environment variable value developer environment. So what it has done, it has successfully extracted the environment variable value. Now this piece of code is very much useful when you want to extract an environment variable value which is very much dependent on the environment, and which will help you in updating the form record value, or maybe sending out an email, or maybe updating say tab or sections within your model driven app. So that's it, folks. This is how you basically extract environment variable value using JavaScript in a model driven app, so that you can make the application data contextual to a specific environment. Thanks for watching.